Good day, everybody. Welcome back to Divulgence. Today, I have the pleasure of joining me, Adam Swart, CEO and founder of Crowds on Demand. Adam, how are you, my friend? Thanks so much
Hey,
for
Jordan.
being here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on your podcast here.
Thanks for being here. So let's jump right into it. You are the founder, as well as the CEO of your company, Crowds on Demand. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what the company is and why you started it?
Sure. Crowds on Demand, largest protest company in the country, possibly the world, to tell you the truth. Started in 2012 by me. And so I've been in this business about 13 years. We specialize in protests, advocacy, campaigns, PR stunts, kind of audience events, all that sort of thing. I like to go on these shows for a few reasons. I always like to be very upfront with my intentions when I go on a podcast or any kind of show. Number one is to dispel some misinformation that circulates online about Crowds on Demand in my business. That there's a lot of misinformation that we engage in rioting or looting or vandalism or whatever. We obviously don't do that, right? I wouldn't be out on the media if I engaged in any kind of illegal activity. It's really unfortunate that people spread that kind of misinformation. So it's important and incumbent on me as the founder to kind of go out in the media and make sure to set the record straight. Number two, to talk about the ethics of what we do, right? Because a lot of people have different opinions about the ethics of what we do. We compensate people to show up, right, and express their opinions or, provide an audience or whatever. So some people have ethical objections to that. But I always like to say once we unpack those ethical objections, a lot of times they go away. So I like to go out on there to do that. And the third part is to talk about my priorities over the next 5 or 10 years and the type of campaigns that I want to do and to express that intentionality. So those are sort of the three reasons that I do media. I feel like a lot of times in the media, people are not upfront with why they go out on shows. And I like to be very transparent with my motivations for doing media because people do wonder why I would be out there. So that's why.
Well, I totally agree with your last point, and on that note, I applaud you greatly for your approach because, like you said, a lot of the people, if not the majority of people who come on the news or the media, there's always an ulterior motive, and it's never spoken of. So it's great that you give me the opportunity. We can talk about those three main things. So. Why don't we jump into, I guess, like the ethics and the morals and stuff like that. So, a lot of people obviously when they think of, I'm sure you've heard it before. You've done a lot of different talk shows. I've saw a lot of your news shows that you were on and stuff like that. So I'm sure you get it a lot with getting questions about things like working with billionaires or being funded with billionaires like George. Yeah. I'm sure you get questioned about George Soros all the time. How does it make sense that you pay people to protest?
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Questions. All good questions.
Right.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit, actually. So let me give you a historical note to start it off. Right.
Great.
Which is before the year 1911. Members of the British Parliament were unpaid for their service, right? So before 1911, who do you think became a member of the British Parliament, right? The British Parliament was almost exclusively the landed gentry, right? Who joined the Parliament both for ego and to essentially protect their vested interests and preserve the system, right? So I think I would ask your audience and you to consider that protesting is the same way. So if there was no compensation for protesting, right? There's the opportunity cost to protest is very different for each person. So if you think about if I'm a well-to-do retiree, right, I can go to as many protests as I want. If I'm a college student who doesn't have to work because maybe my parents pay my tuition, I can go to as many protests as I want, right? If I am an hourly worker with 3 kids and I want to go to a protest, well, I have to arrange childcare and I have to take off unpaid time from my job, right? So the opportunity cost might be hundreds of dollars to attend a protest. So, and that is hundreds of dollars that you don't have, right? So as a result, certain people get to attend protests disproportionately, and certain viewpoints, therefore, are going to be expressed disproportionately. So, yes, while every person may have the constitutional right to protest, the practicality of it is such that certain people who have the wealth or the lack of responsibilities, the flexibility to attend protests, may be more likely to show up, and therefore their views get disproportional say vis-a-vis the views of ordinary people who may have other things to do and other responsibilities. So therefore, how does Crowds on Demand figure into this? Well, what we do is, let's just say you are that hourly worker with childcare. Well, what if we paid you $200 to show up at a protest that comports with your viewpoints, right? $200 is not going to get you, if you are a Trump supporter, to go to a BLM rally, right? Or presumably vice versa, right? But it will say, okay, I can cover my childcare. I can take off a day from an hourly job, or at least mitigate that how much it costs. So it actually, what it does is it actually allows more people to participate in the system, right? Whereas they otherwise wouldn't be able to. So I guess I think it's important, and a lot of people don't really think about that fact, but now look at who shows up at these protests, right? So just look at any protest that you might see and just go stop and see. And I'm not saying there are no hourly workers there, but there aren't a lot of them, right? Like when and I don't blame those hourly workers. So, but those hourly workers, do you believe that they should be able to have the right to protest, or do you believe that it is fair that they have a disproportionate opportunity cost in expressing those rights? So I guess that's sort of my number one point in regards to all of this.
Yeah, you know what, that makes great sense when you look at it from that point of view. Obviously, another thought on the other side of the coin is, well, how many people are showing up to this protest that are getting paid, that actually care about this cause? And I've heard you talk to this, but can you just get into that a little bit as well?
Yeah, of course.
Do you, and I guess you can maybe first, can you answer, what is the application process like for Crowds on Demand, and what do you look at when you're deciding who to pay and how much to pay them?
Okay, well, first of all, there is an application process, but we also will actually reach out proactively to people. So sometimes the application process is we will actively seek who we want. Sometimes, I mean, obviously we have a database of people who come to us, but we will also strategically seek out people who work. I mean, think of it as like a casting for like a movie, right? So maybe some people will audition, but maybe some people we will actually say, well, we think that you'd be really good in this, right? And that's based on your views and your social media and all of that. Like, we look on social media and other things because we want people who are sincerely passionate about the cause, right? And what we do, and a lot of people don't know this, is before each event, like a political event, we actually survey the people who are participating, and we'll have people who like call and say, okay, well, what are your views? Like, this is an event for like this cause. Do you support this cause? Like, what are your views in regards to this cause? You see what I'm saying? So we will actually interview those people to ensure to the best of our standards. Now, of course, you can go to Starbucks, right? And, Starbucks presumably has baristas who like to make coffee and are good at making coffee. Now, will every barista who works at Starbucks be good at making coffee? Maybe there's some who aren't, right? So Do I think that there are occasionally people who may participate in our events who aren't good advocates for causes? Yes, absolutely. But it's my job and my team's job to make sure that that rarely happens.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. I guess my next question would be, if you're able to kind of tell me how much, well, I guess first of all, how much does protesting make up your kind of piece of the pie, so to speak? I know you talked about a lot of different other events that you might hire for or pay for, but how much is protesting a part of it? And is it becoming more a part of your business as of the last few years?
I think it fluctuates. It's certainly a big part of our business. Now, what I think a lot of misnomer is that it's all political. A lot of times our clients are businesses that have disputes that need to be kind of aired out. They're trying to raise awareness, maybe trying to raise awareness about something in regards to their industry or policy or whatever that might affect their industry. Maybe it's on the government side, or maybe it's just purely a corporate to corporate issue. So people think everything we do is political, and a lot of times it's like has nothing to do with politics. And the other misnomer is that we work with candidates. We do sometimes, but a vast majority of our work is actually with issues where we're trying to push candidates to adopt certain positions on issues through protests rather than to actually work directly for the candidates themselves. So that's like another misnomer that people have about our business.
Okay. What I guess, what would you say some of the other big misconceptions about your business are, since we're kind of nailing some of them already?
Yeah, well, that's a big one. I would say one of the other big ones is that the people don't care about the issue. As I was kind of saying, is that a lot of
Right.
times we really vet people for that. And the other thing is what we really try to do as much as possible. I mean, that is in addition to that, what we like to do is try to have people who have a personal experience with the issue, right? So I like to describe, I mean, of course, this is me as the founder kind of, but I like to have people who are like passionate with personal experience about the issue. So let's just say we're doing a campaign in Minneapolis against the defund the police movement, and we're saying like we need law enforcement. I would like to have people who actually have experience with dealing with crime in their neighborhood and dealing with how dangerous things have become, to say, hey, this is why we need the police, right? As opposed to just somebody who's maybe supports the issue. Like I like our people to be brand ambassadors for an issue, right? So I think that it's interesting that a lot of people, a lot of times very well paid commentators are like, oh, this is when you pay people, their viewpoint is somehow illegitimate, when those same people are being paid 7 or 8 figures and we're supposed to believe that their opinions are sincere. You
Absolutely.
see what I'm saying? So
For sure.
to hear people like, John Oliver, Joe Rogan, or whatever, who like opine about our business, but like they're paid like crap tons of money, and we're supposed to believe that what they say is their sincere opinion, even where they have huge incentives. But then it's actually a very classist argument that they're like, oh, well, someone getting paid a couple $100, so they don't believe it. Whereas like when millions are on the line, somehow it's all sincere. So like, so I do think that like, I think a lot of times people have this opinion like, oh my God, paying protesters, that like in people's core that feels bad. So they like, or like paid protest bad. But then when you actually unpack it, you're like, wait a second, this kind of makes more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was just thinking about it when you're talking about it, and I thought, well, I mean, personally, if I'm to reflect on myself, I feel like if I were to be offered money um, to go to a protest for something that I mean, not only I mean, forget not, maybe being neutral about it, but if it was something that I completely disagreed with, I mean, I feel like I would expect more money than someone like a company might be willing to pay. However,
Yeah, exactly.
if I mean, I'm sure there are people that, will take anything they can get, of course. But on the
Yeah,
other
but we
side of the
try
coin,
to control against, like, yes, of course, you can hire people who are homeless and kind of offer them money that who knows what they're going to use it for.
sure.
Um, However, that generally doesn't reflect the best on your cause. So, I mean, look, there are certain issues that people who are homeless might actually understand better than people who aren't.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
of course,
Absolutely.
I'm not against providing those people opportunities, but again, they'd have to have sincere convictions, you know?
Right. And that goes back to those controls that you put into place to make sure that you're getting the most sincere people, right?
Yes.
So again, so to the other side of the point that I was making, if it was if I wasn't someone who like necessarily wanted to protest or liked protesting or getting out there, or if I couldn't make it because of like if I had to go to work and I needed to make the money, but all of a sudden if there's this financial incentive and I'm not
Yeah,
losing out on money, or maybe I'm making a buck or two, then absolutely I would feel more incentivized
exactly.
to fight for something that I feel is a cause of mine, right?
That's exactly
So
right.
yeah,
That's exactly.
you absolutely have to think of both sides of the coin, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure you get skepticism and criticism all the time.
Yeah.
So it's I guess one of the most important things is that the integrity of these controls that you have in place, right? Um, is there
Yes.
any
Oh, absolutely.
is there any more that you can tell me about the process of like to make sure that someone's worthy of not worthy, but sincere about a cause,
Yeah,
uh,
sure.
something
Well,
like
I
that?
like to call it a reverse jury questionnaire. So when you're being
Okay.
called to jury duty, they want to make sure you're objective and yet that you don't have preconceived views. Whereas, like, I would like to say, we want to make sure that you have those views again. And I want to stress that it's not necessarily a perfect process, but what we can do is make sure that you say you're on board with the cause and that you seem sincere about it, right? So that's our process, right? Now, the best you can do when it comes to a couple $100, like, I don't think my personal opinion is people are not willing to lie for that amount of money, and they're not willing to abandon their convictions. Like, it is true that if the compensation were tens of thousands of dollars, then yeah, I think you'd have a lot of people willing to do that. But the reality is the economics don't really make sense in that regard. Um, so yeah, we haven't really had that many issues where you've had people who don't agree with the cause. In fact, we have people who are like very engaged, and sometimes they've kind of started working on an event and then they've become more passionate about the cause themselves, even like gone deeper into it. So yeah.
Hmm. Cool. Um, just before we get into anything else, I just would like to make sure that um, you get to speak to the third point that you wanted to talk to, which I
Yes.
believe was your priorities for the future.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of my priorities is having fewer but larger, more impactful campaigns. I mean, as you can imagine, when you start a business, people aren't necessarily, I mean, I've been in business 13 years. When you start a business, people are mostly coming to you with small stuff. They're not going to trust you if you've been in business for 1 year with a giant campaign necessarily, right? Whereas my goal is to I don't necessarily have to agree 100% with your conviction with the campaign. And I'll give you a good example of, like, we've worked a lot with the cryptocurrency industry over the past 8 years. Like 8 years ago when they came to us, I was like, you know, I didn't really know much about cryptocurrency, but I felt that at that point the institutions were really stacked against them. And I was like, look, no one is speaking for them. They need a voice, right? And I can be that. We can kind of provide them with that voice. So I don't necessarily have to agree with it, but I love it when it's something that I'm very sincerely interested in. And some of the campaigns that I'm most interested in tackling are social media companies. I think they're evil. They're addictive. Fast food
Absolutely.
and the nutrition, the like companies that are poisoning Americans with their chemicals, also addictive, also need to be taken on. And number three is tackling the defund the police, like move to kind of make our why our cities are so dangerous right now. Is like those are my three priorities because I'm an urbanist. I'm someone who loves cities and loves the feel and the look and the vibrancy of cities. But it's so unfortunate that bad policy has led to cities kind of declining in so many ways and becoming more dangerous. And that's not even a political point because I don't know whether Republicans have even done a better job than Democrats. But I do think that I think we have a bad choice because I think Republicans fail to invest in things like parks and public transportation and other things that are critical to vibrancy, whereas Democrats fail to invest in law enforcement and strict, against like the drug users and the pushers and all that. So what I'd like to do is make our cities more beautiful, stop addiction to food, stop addiction to social media, and then maybe as a fourth thing, figure out a way to kind of bridge the gender divide where which is a lot harder to do through a PR campaign. So it's something I'm passionate about, but I don't know, like the first three are quite easy to resolve through like mass protest campaigns because McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Facebook, all these companies need to be protested every single day. All their leaders, their board members, they need to be protested until they dramatically change their business model because their business models are essentially based on murder. I hate to say it, but basically taking all of your the life out of Americans, unfortunately. So and people around the world. So so to the extent that we can get them to, I mean, nutrition companies like Coke, like if anything, Coke could actually more easily change their business model. I don't know how social media companies can change their business model because I mean, Coca-Cola could tomorrow decide to remove a bunch of crap from their products if they wanted to, right? Because
what does Facebook do, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know what they do, but that's not my problem. They're poisoning people. It's not my like they're poisoning people, and so are all the other social media companies. They really are. And we actually led one of the most successful campaigns again around that, which was called Delete Facebook in the 2010s, which was a bipartisan effort because everybody doesn't really had a problem with how Facebook, the algorithms were being manipulated to turn people against each other, invade people's privacy and everything. And we actually got them. They actually changed their name from Facebook to Meta, and they made it part of political advertising as a result of our campaign. However, there's a lot more that needs to be done, and these companies are still really hurting Americans. So to take on the big food, big social media, and the make our cities great again, truly great again, those are really campaigns that I want to take on.
Nice, man. Good for you. That's those are obviously great causes, and yeah, I totally agree that social media is out of control. Our food is out of control with regards to what the hell's being put in it and how it's prepared, and yeah, a lot of I live in Canada personally, but I do see that there are it's kind of like that up here too to an extent. But yeah, certain cities are just falling apart, and laws are.
For example, Vancouver has a major problem with a lot of drug users, at least in my experience. Some Canadian cities are so cold that it's hard to be out on the street, certainly in this time of year or after. but I think it is a major problem, and they have to crack down on it. And I do think north of the border, there's a lot of leadership that is needed to tackle some of those same problems, to be sure.
Um, what's your like? How transparent are you guys with when it comes to like who you're working with, or maybe not necessarily who you're working with, but what causes you're sending people to, and what rallies and stuff like
Well,
that?
I guess, Jordan, I will put it to you this way. I've made a deal with I've offered that I am willing to reveal which who we compensate to be there. If everyone else who goes to every rally will also put a post-it note on their chest and say why they are there, right? Because
Sure.
what the point is, that the reason why you would want us to reveal, right, is because because there could be the concern that, okay, if somebody is being paid, that's an ulterior motive to attend, right? So the idea, what the concept behind that is, okay, if you're going to a protest, right, you should be sincerely in favor of something. And if you're getting paid, that is a reason, what's called an ulterior motive, right? So, well, okay, let me give you a few other ulterior motives, right? A lot of people like to flex on Instagram, right? So the Real Housewives of Orange County, a lot of them went to the BLM rallies during the summer of
Yeah.
2020. I mean, do you think those ladies know anything about institutionalized
No.
racism? Right. They don't know anything about that, right? So it's like they're there because they want to post it on social media and show that they're like with whatever is going on, right? So okay, so that's their ulterior motive. Labor unions, and I don't know to what extent this happens in your neck of the woods in Canada, but in the United States, labor unions force more or less their labor union members to attend events for their endorsed candidates. And if you don't go
Sure.
to these events, right, how it works is if you go, you're going to get good shifts. You're going to kind of rise up within the hierarchy. And if you don't, you're going to get the graveyard shifts or whatever, right? And I've talked to a lot of union employees that are like, yeah, Adam, I'm so glad that you've talked about this, because this does happen all the time, where we're told we kind of have to show up for these rallies for the labor endorsed candidates. And on the right, a lot of the mega churches will send people to stuff, right? So it's not just on the left. Now, in Canada, I guess I would ask like the NDP, right, which is the sort of labor dominated group over there. Like, okay, are you essentially pushing your people, the labor, right, like to go out there, right, in support of the NDP candidates? So I don't know. I don't know, but I imagine that is going on. But I don't know. I would ask the NDP that in Canada. But then the other thing is, at least in the United States, we have 15,000 Capitol Hill staff members, Republicans and Democrats, right? So when you see like a big protester rally in Capitol Hill or anywhere in Washington, D.C., a lot of the people who are attending are just the staff members or government workers who are told to be there. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
They're partisan staffers. And yes, it's technically not part of their job to go there, but would you want to tell the congressperson, oh no, I'm not going to go to your press conference, right? No, I probably wouldn't want to tell them that. So it's very interesting. You know, again, not sure to what extent that happens in Canada, as you said, you are up there, but certainly there's a lot of funny business that happens up north of the border as well. The other thing that I don't like that they did north of the border is it feels like the I've complained a lot in my country, in the United States, that our law enforcement is too politicized when it comes to protests, right? I've always believed that it should be a content neutral. So now you don't have a First Amendment in Canada, which you should, by the way, but you don't. But in the United States, we have First Amendment rights. So the idea is if a protester throws a Molotov cocktail, right, that's illegal. But it should not matter if the Molotov cocktail was thrown by BLM, neo-Nazi, MAGA, Palestine, Israel. The penalty should be the same, but it's not the same. You see what I'm saying? It's not the same, because if there's a liberal prosecutor, they're going to go hard on the conservative. And if it's a conservative prosecutor, they're going to go hard on the liberal. I mean, just look at how the truckers were treated in Canada,
exactly.
right? And versus around the same time, you had BLM, who did a lot of the same stuff, if not worse, right? Now, both essentially engaged in forms of law breaking, right? They blocked off roads and all that without a permit. They had illegal encampments. That's my understanding, correct? Is the truckers did this and BLM did this. But BLM was not really treated nearly as harshly as the truckers, right? So I think that's wrong. That they went so. My thing is, if you're going to be tough on the truckers, be tough on BLM, or be easy on both of them, but it should be consistent. And to say, if you block off a street without a permit, this is the penalty. It doesn't matter whether, the thing is that the whole premise of the First Amendment, and again, I have to say, you guys don't have the First Amendment, so you don't have the premise, but is that it doesn't matter.
You got the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, so
it should be honored, but the problem is that I mean, I worry about Canada, and I worry about my country too, going to the direction of the United Kingdom, where you can basically have thought crimes, right? And the major problem with how that is done. And it's funny because the right has been very vocal about this and the left has been pretty silent. But what's interesting is a lot of people have not talked about is that a lot of liberal lefties have been thrown in prison in Britain for this too, like the environmentalist activists. So let's just say you post on Twitter something like, burn all the cars to the ground. Cars are causing the global warming crisis, right? Like something is like fairly innocuous like that. You could get thrown in prison in England for saying that, because that's a call to, that could be called that thought of as a call to some sort of violence, even that though that's obviously, you're saying that's a rhetorical call, not a actual call. Do you see what I'm saying? So a lot of those environmentalist activists, because it's interesting. So I actually was talking about this, and I got a lot of hateful comments from British people being like, "Oh, this doesn't just happen to conservatives; it happens to liberals." And I'm like, I'm not a conservative. I'm actually a nonpartisan person. So I have a problem if free speech is being infringed for liberals or for conservatives. I'm not a shill for either party. So I have a big problem with that. And I would love for Canada to take a stance for freedom of speech. And I would love to see more of that from everyone in Canada.
So you don't necessarily, you see yourself kind of in the middle politically?
Oh yeah, well, I grew up as a Democrat. I'm from California. I worked on a lot of Democratic campaigns, but I've long lost faith in them. I mean, I work with Democrats all the time, and I work with Republicans all the time on issues of common sense. Because look, the Democrats are right on a lot of issues. I mean, there is consensus in Canada that people should not die because of lack of access to healthcare, right? That's not a conservative liberal divide. But in America, that is. And I side with the Democrats. I think people should have access to healthcare, even if they make bad choices, even if you're a dumbass and eat nothing but McDonald's and don't exercise. And do I think that you should be treated if you need treatment? Yes. And a lot of Republicans are like, oh, well, no, it's your own fault. It's like, yeah, It might be your own fault, but you should still not die. I'm sorry. The penalty for being a dumbass is not death, right? So, so I side with the Democrats on that, but I side with the Republicans on law and order. That we need safe streets. I side with the Democrats on parks and public transit. So there's a lot of I don't shill for either party. Good
for you.
Yeah, definitely don't shill for either party. I mean, your system is so fascinating. I don't think I would have I don't know how Pierre can can come back to Ottawa with any face after he lost his own seat, and some putz in Northern Alberta gave up his seat so that he could like come back to Parliament. Like I'd be
Yeah.
like embarrassed to do that, honestly. Like he should wait for the next election and win a seat in his own right. Like, come on. Like I feel like it's kind of sad. Like I actually really used to like him, but I kind of lost respect for him a little bit because of that. Because I think you've got to win on your own right. You can't just cheat, like not cheat. I don't want to say he's cheated.
Oh,
he
for
did,
sure. Yeah.
He was the rightful winner, but he basically got some putts in wherever the fuck it was. Sorry for my language, but
no, man, say whatever you want.
And then he came back. So I think that was unfortunate. So you guys need better leaders in Canada too, because it's just like a terrible. You guys have some bad choices. I mean, we have bad choices, but you have bad choices. It too, absolutely.
Do you see much left and right alliance with the causes you work with, or is it a lot of?
I try to build left and right consensus all the time. Like I said, so I mentioned the delete Facebook, social media. Yep. That's like everybody hates social media. So there's a lot of and in regards to the food issue too, I think everybody agrees. So I don't know anyone who's defending Coca-Cola other than the big interests who they pay, right? So yeah, like I think there's a lot of bipartisan consensus that can be done. It's just there are institutional barriers to it. But yes, I would love to build. So for those two, there's an easy bipartisan consensus. For the food and the social media, like everybody wants good food, everybody wants social media. I don't know why the Democrats have sort of backed down from healthy eating. Like Michelle Obama planted a vegetable garden. Remember that? And the Republicans called her a Marxist. I don't know why that's Marxist, but they called it that. Stupid. And now the Democrats are like into this like fat acceptance movement, which is dumb. They should give that up. But that's a marginal constituency within the Democratic Party. I think that the difference in the United States, just for your Canadian viewers who don't follow American politics, is that I think that by and large, the Democratic voters are actually moderate, but their elites are wacky. But actually, if you talk to normal Democrats, they want all the same things that normal people want. They want good schools. They want safe streets. They want law and order. They want police. They want healthcare and those sorts of things. But they're just normal people. I think the challenge that the Republicans have is that, and you've seen this with the kind of divide between like Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes and versus sort of the establishment, is that actually a majority of their voters are actually more on the Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes side than the sort of, I don't know, Ben Shapiro, Bill Ackman side. I mean, that's a simplistic way to put it, but their problem is the Democratic voters. Moderates should win every time. It's just that moderates don't always show up. In the Republican setting, the challenge is that moderates. I mean, the institutional Republicans are vastly outnumbered. So that is their challenge: is that the institutional Republicans are vastly outnumbered, but they've outsmarted the sort of more right-wing, whatever you want to call them, the Tucker Fuentes group, because Trump, it's interestingly enough, gives lip service to the Tucker Fuentes group on a rhetorical basis, but on a policy basis, he generally governs in favor of the Wall Street Israel group, right? So the thing is, Trump is sort of invincible politically. So I don't think he'll catch up to Trump, because Trump can always keep this. He's great at keeping that group together.
Not lately.
I think he'll be able to do it. I never underestimate that guy. He's a genius. Okay. They'll all get it together in the end, just like Elon Musk or whatever. They all come back to him. So I think the thing is that with as long as he's president, I think he can run things as he wants. The question is, in the next election, the institutionalists are way outnumbered by the Tucker Fuentes, Candace Owens group. So ultimately, you're going to end up with a candidate who presumably is more on that side than the institutionalist side. Trump can keep that group at bay because of his rhetoric and because of his style, but I don't know whether like Ted Cruz has, or like a Ron DeSantis or Ted Cruz has any chance in this next cycle versus someone more on the other camp of that group.
You don't think Trump's gonna go for a next term?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't think so. I have no idea.
Would you vote for another Trump?
Oh, I would never tell you how I'm gonna vote. I would
never yeah, you know what? Sorry, I apologize. I just thought I wasn't even thinking. Sorry, I didn't mean to ask you that.
I would never say I'm going to vote, but as I always say, it depends on the candidates. I'm not wedded to voting for any party. I'll tell you that. Sure. I wouldn't say that. Yeah, but I'm really curious how things shake up north of the border as well, because I do follow Canadian politics, and it's just a very interesting group of people. I mean, I'm glad the wacky lefty guy, the Singh, is gone, right? Is he out, or is he going to come back? I don't know. But he was a wacky dude. Carney's a very, very smart politician. So that the challenge that the conservatives have is like, how are they going to kind of go up against someone like that who's just very, very savvy guy? And at the same time, not get upstaged by someone like Maxine. You know, so that it'll be very interesting. But we don't really work north of the border. We got a lot of inquiries north of the border, but we tend not to want to take that on. Marketing, yes, but politics, no, too complicated.
Gotcha. Where do you see AI, unless you're already seeing it, but where do you see AI when it comes to in the future, when it comes to not only your business but also the future of protesting?
Well, AI will impact protesting. It's hard to say exactly how. Number one, you could essentially, with a more deep AI, you could kind of essentially manufacture images of a protest or take a protest and make it look larger. So you could take 1,000 person, make it look like it's 100,000 people. However, what I don't know, Jordan, is it's really a race between deep fakes and the platform's ability to stop deep fakes. So right now, I feel like the deep fakes are a little bit ahead of the platform's ability to stop them. In the sense that there's a lot of just complete fake information on, at least on Twitter, X, that I see that is like, it like, to someone who's like fairly savvy like me, it's obviously fake, but I think to a lot of people, it looks real.
Sure. For sure. Yeah.
And so part of it is two things. Number one is the technology to stop it. And number two is the desire to stop it, right? So number one, I don't know on the tech side. You'd have to ask a tech person whether the technology is out there to crack down on it. But the second part is the desire to stop it. Like, I think Elon likes the idea of Twitter as a Wild West. So like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter if it's deep fake. They'll more or less allow it to sit there, which I don't know what I think about that. I don't think it's a good idea generally, but I think that's really where it's at. But I think as we get into like more and more digital world, I do feel like there's almost more and more need for in-person, because what happens is, and this is kind of a good closing thought here, is we are inundated in this digital world with computer notifications, iPad notifications, phone notifications, AI, like ChatGPT, social media, all this stuff coming at us everywhere digitally, but we're not primed for things in person. So something that's actually in person that you can see has a certain resonance that something on your phone or digital doesn't. And I think that in a world where we're so saturated digitally, there's such a reason to actually have this.
Awesome. Well, quick final thought. What is do you have a favorite event that you helped provide people to?
Um, yeah. Well, one of my favorites, I'll end on a fun note, is we actually staged a wedding. Well, we've done a couple.
Okay.
One of my favorite ones was initially wedding planner reached out to us and was like, "Oh, we need some kind of young professional looking people to kind of be the friends at the wedding," because there was a very wealthy guy from abroad getting married to this woman who was maybe like not from the most reputable place, right? So
Okay.
she didn't really have any family or friends that would be reputable there, but they would want the other family, the foreign family would want to see, oh, she has got friends and stuff. So you're like, okay,
Okay.
so we started getting like friends together, kind of people, young professional, like someone who might like look like me or something, right? So okay, we got like 100 people together there. Then maybe a week before, they're like, okay, I also want family, some aunts, some uncles, Okay, so we did that. But then 3 days before the wedding, they're like, oh crap, we need a father of the bride. And
Oh
I was like,
God.
whoa, okay, well, so I need okay, we got like there's a white girl. So I was like, we need a white guy, 60 to 70. I need him to cry at the wedding. You know what I mean? So we literally got this whole thing. So the other thing is I had everybody prepared with a backstory. Like, okay, you've got to have like a whole backstory because they're going to ask you, oh, how do you know her, et cetera, et cetera. So we came prepared at this beautiful venue. It was probably $1 million wedding, like all in, maybe a little bit less, but we had everybody prepared with the stories. Turns out none of the family spoke a word of English and they just kept to themselves. So it was all for naught. I mean, it looked good in the pictures,
Oh my
but
God.
but it was just funny watching the father walk the daughter down the aisle. It was just so ridiculous. I'm like, I can't believe we did
That's
that.
great, man. Great.
So so we do a lot of unconventional events like that have nothing to do with politics, but are fun.
Cool, man. Good for you. Well, thanks so much for your time again. Before we go, let everyone know where they can find you or where you'd like to direct them to. I'll pull your website up here real quick.
Sure. Crowdsondemand.com, www.crowdsondemand.com, or they can check me out on X/Twitter at CEO Adam Swart.
Perfect. Right on.
Well, Jordan, thanks so much. This has been a fun, like 50 minutes chatting with you. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for your time, Adam. I would love to have you back sometime. So let's stay in touch. Thanks to everyone in the audience, all the listeners and watchers. Please subscribe to the Divulgence podcast. And yeah, stay safe, everyone. We'll see you next time. We got a show on we got Sam Newsman 3-hour show on Saturday. I also have William Ramsey Saturday and a show Monday. So we're pumping.